Hello, I'm Cynthia Rice. I'm with California Rural Legal Assistance, and as Eva said, we've been in this from the beginning, actually since 2010, when the Office of Civil Rights issued the statistics showing that Kern High School District had one of the worst cases of over-discipline of African American and Latino students in the country. I can't tell you, in my 32 years of practice as a lawyer, I have never been as excited about the turnout we have had tonight. Thank each and every one of you for coming here. Please come here the next time we do it. Please go to the district's community forum on Tuesday and every community forum they have, because we did this lawsuit so that your voices can be heard and the district can take action to respond to the concerns that you raise. The settlement agreement provides a platform for you to do that in a number of ways. One, there will be 2 community forums held by the district every year for the next 3 years to report to you about the statistics, about suspensions, expulsions, transfers, teacher hiring, etc., so that you know exactly what's going on in real time. And Dr. Eiler will talk a little bit about another aspect of the settlement agreement, a shaped data system, which on, again, a real-time basis is providing teachers and administrators with information about what's happening to kids individually, but also trends and patterns that can be addressed from the perspective of discipline policies and behavior modification policies, but also from the perspective of looking at whether or not their policies seem to be biased or affecting one group of students greater than another. It provides for comprehensive training of teachers, administrators, staff people in the front desk, and security guard on these new behavioral systems and on issues of race and how to deal with issues like implicit bias and explicit bias, and how to overcome some of the perceptions that we all have that are wrong about people who are different than us. The other element of the settlement agreement that is going to be very, very important is that there are some policy changes with respect to the discipline process. It's supposed to be friendlier now. It's supposed to allow for engagement and full disclosure about what can happen to your children. There should never be a time again when a Spanish-speaking parent is asked to sign a document in English that will affect their students' education. The district has committed to that, and they've translated the forms, and they're going to move forward through it. We know as lawyers that all we are vessels for the issues and the rights that you all assert and move forward. We are thrilled. It was a long, hard fight, but I think we're done fighting, and we're ready to move forward with the leadership of this extraordinary expert team that we have, with the commitment of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and all of the administrative staff, and the wonderful trainings that are going to go forward over the next 3 years. We think that this will be a civil rights change moment in Kern High School District, and we hope it will seep over into Kern County altogether. So I don't want that bell to ring. So that's all I'm going to say for now. If there are specific questions about the settlement agreement, we'll have time for that later on. There are some cards at the back which has have a website and a telephone, an 800 number, where people can call and just raise concerns, if you have them, about transfers, about discipline, about issues of racial injustice, so that we can alert the district to that fact and move forward to address these problems as they come up, rather than looking at them 3 or 4 years later. So thank you, thank you, thank you all for coming.
John Eiler and Jess Spring are going to talk first. Great, thank you. First, I'd like to say that there's a member of the expert team who wasn't able to be here physically today, but I think it's important to acknowledge him. Dr. Eddie Fergus is with Temple University, and he is primarily responsible for helping with a lot of the equity work and equity implementation in the current high school district. What I'd like to do is just first start by saying that this really, in terms of an expert team, is a reflection of a commitment of multiple parties to work together and engage in the right work. This isn't a team that was really forced out of coercion, if you will. There is commitment from multiple parties to do the right work in current. So I think that's important for you to understand. It's not a twisting of the arm. The district leadership is engaged and they want to do the right work. So you're going to hear from multiple experts today in terms of just the scope of work. If I can just summarize very briefly, there are 4 bodies of work, if you will, or 4 approaches. One is in the area of data. Cynthia mentioned this previously. One of the important pieces around this work is being able to put data onto school sites so they have a problem-solving mechanism to be able to look at trends. And so this data system allows them to look at multiple trends over multiple years and identify students not who are just getting suspended, but who are starting to rise to the surface in number of office referrals. So that's a critical piece to this work. The other body of work is professional learning, and there's an aggressive, this is probably one of the most comprehensive plans that I've seen a district lean into, and there's professional learning around restorative practices, social-emotional learning, not only for kids but also for adults, so there's a heavy emphasis on social-emotional learning with adults. Classroom management, we call it Get Curious, Not Furious. And then there's a system implementation around positive behavior interventions and support. So that's the professional learning piece. And then there are 2 other kind of bodies. One is school site coaching. And so there's 2 coaching mechanisms. One, Dr. Fergus is leading this with school site principals and teams to be able to look at data around advanced placement, discipline, participation in special education, least restricted environments, and help teams do some problem solving as to why they see disparities in their data. The other area of coaching is around positive behavior interventions and supports. And so we have coaches working with school site teams to put those structures into place. The last body of work is with district work, and that's really about sustainability. We don't want this to be something that we're there for 3 years or however long that is, and then we're gone and everything falls and it's not kind of memorialized. And so that work involves policy change. There's new discipline guidelines that are being developed in this body of work that doesn't just focus on consequences, but pairs consequences, if there is one to be given, with an intervention, something that's restorative or something that teaches a new skill set to prevent the need to use a consequence-driven system down the road. So that's a little bit of the 4 areas of work. I'd like to pass it over a little to Jeff Sprague, a good colleague, just to speak about some of the area of work that he's going to be advising.
Hi there, I'll try to be brief as well. My name is Jeff Sprague. I'm a professor of special education at the University of Oregon. The work that most people know as PBIS, I'm one of the original 5 people that developed that back in the late 90s. It may be important to know I'm also a former special education teacher, or as I often say, I'm a recovering special education teacher. Taught high school back in the 80s for 9 years. In my recent work, as John also mentioned, the work of restorative practice has been one of the set of practices put forward as alternatives to traditional suspension or expulsion in that regard. So my colleague group and I have been doing some initial research in that regard and also helping develop ways, they're called fidelity checklists, basically ways to follow up and see what practices are in place. And the origin of that work really came around a focus on racial, ethnic, and disability-based disproportionality in discipline. So I'm mostly a special ed person, and my role on the expert team is to work with the experts to help oversee from our expert point of view the outcomes that Cynthia mentioned. I think one thing, and this is a lot of words, so I hope that as people in your community, you take the time to read at least some of the highlights from the settlement agreement. It really is quite comprehensive. It's a pretty brilliant piece of work from my perspective. I'm doing related work in some other districts for the U.S. Department of Justice, for example, and a couple of school districts in the Midwest. So the features that are being put forth here are really important. They're really solid. They represent the best that we know. And we also have a long ways to go in terms of learning. So in the work with Dr. Eiler, myself, and the rest of the team who will get to introduce themselves, but also Eddie Fergus, we're trying to be inclusive here. We're going to learn a lot along the way as well. So great to be part of that. I'll have a relatively limited role compared to Dr. Eiler and his group, but I give them all of John's colleagues big thumbs up. I've worked with many of them for many years, so I'm looking forward to being as much help as I can in that regard. So.
Good evening. It's wonderful to see so many people here, so many parents and supportive community members. My name is Rachel Godsell, and I'm a professor at Rutgers Law School in New Jersey, and also the co-founder and director of research for what's called the Perception Institute. And the Perception Institute is a consortium of people who have research expertise in dealing with issues of why race, ethnicity, disability, gender, religion, and other ways in which we can be different can cause the kind of disproportionalities that people have been concerned about, and how people can bring their genuine good values into their behaviors, and how we work with judges and lawyers and healthcare practitioners and school districts across the country to help figure out why race can be hard even when people are good. And so the goal of this work is to support the professional learning and development that the teachers and all the other folks in the high school and in the district are engaged in, to help bring the most advanced learning we can about how our brains work and about how we can ensure that every child in the school feels supported, how every family member feels like the schools are there for them and their children. And we're really, really excited to be part of this effort and to support the multi-tiered work that is happening in the district. Whenever we work in any content area, we always make sure that we have someone who's a content expert in the day-to-day practice of what this work is. So again, we work with all sorts of different institutions, but we have as an advisor to us, and I have as an advisor to me in my role as an expert, Zipporah Mills, who's an educator for the last 32 years, a principal for the last 11 years, and what she'll be doing is bringing her understanding of how schools work at a day-to-day level to engage with the science so that we could share those best practices. So again, we're really happy to be here. We really want to hear your stories to understand your experiences, and I'm happy to introduce my colleague.
Good evening. As Rachel said, my name is Zipporah Mills, and this is my first trip to California. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I honestly can from my heart say that while in my mind, I imagine my first trip driving down Rodeo or whatever it's called, I can't imagine my first trip to California being this powerful and this important, and I am truly humbled by everyone in this room. As Rachel said, I come with 32 years of experience, all in Brooklyn, New York. But as this young lady said, us educators, we've got a long way to go before we really have equitable schools. And because I really am overwhelmed by everything here. I want to just say that my hope, my intention is to support other teachers and other school leaders. I had an opportunity all of last year to work with Dr. Eddie Fergus. We worked with about 65 school leaders in New York City. We worked with 5 very specific schools in creating equity teams and doing a lot of work around disproportionality and how teachers and parents and school leaders can sit down together, look at their students, come up with ways and interventions and have conversations first around individual students and then put things in place. And I'm going to just close with one of the things that I want to share, because I say to you that Bakersfield and Brooklyn are probably not as different as you think they are. I'm the mother of 3 children, 2 boys, they're young men now. And I too have a story. And when my youngest son, who just turned 29 on Wednesday, was in 4th grade, he went to a new school, and they didn't know him, the staff didn't know him. And he was one of 2 or 3 black males in the class. And 2 weeks into school, the teacher called me and told me that she wanted to put in a referral for him to go to special education. My thinking was, well, damn, you just met him, right, 2 weeks ago. So what did he do to make you think this? And we had this conversation, and while I was, of course, taken aback and could have been really angry, I tried my best to just really, because I was a teacher at that time, just really sort of pick her brain about what she was thinking, had a conversation with my son about what he was doing, and I don't want the bell to ring, so I'm not going to go into the details of how we work together. But within 2 months, she was calling me to say that Jabari had made improvements. But again, she didn't know him, right? So this is something that's happening, and I say this as an educator. This is something that is happening that we as educators really have to face and then really have to do things to make sure that it doesn't happen to any child, whether it's your child, my child, all of them are our children.
Now starts now starts the trickiest part of the evening. So there's some chairs up here. We have been at war for 3 years. Some of you have been at war with the district for longer. Peace has been declared. So take a deep breath. There's a lot of anger people have, but I'm a warrior. I talk about things like white supremacy. If I had a tattoo, it would say "Born to Sue." I like to sue people who are racist. It gives me pleasure. So I just want to give you my bona fides. But the district is here trying to do the right thing. So when you get up to talk, please explain what happened, but don't throw venom at the district because they're trying to do the right thing. If they don't, they know we'll be back. But for now, let's assume good faith on everybody's part, okay? That's going to be hard for some folks to do, but I'm just asking you to do that. You just have to turn the temperature down. I know there's anger, and that's why we filed the lawsuit. But what we want you to do, and that's why we called this meeting, is for you to let the experts know what your children have experienced. So when they go to devise these new programs, they can know, oh, so-and-so's child was kicked out for no reason. So-and-so's child was thrown to the ground, handcuffed and tased for no reason, and the police came. So the experts need to take this into themselves and into their intellects and their souls to figure out how to change the district. Let me just give you a little history, and I won't talk long, I'll have to ring the bell on myself. But back in the day, the first school desegregation case that was an important one was brought in California. It was called Mendez, and it was about Mexican schools. And it was a very good decision striking down Mexican schools. The next group of lawsuits that came about, you may have heard of Thurgood Marshall. He and the lawyers at the Howard University Law School challenged separate but equal. And what they did is they used social science to show that separating the races makes white people think they're superior and makes people of color think that we are inferior. And so they made this presentation to the court bought it and knocked down separate but equal. I'm old enough, I was born when separate but equal was the law. I was born in Texas, and I saw change. So what we have done in this lawsuit is we've brought some of the best minds in the country to use social science to talk to the teachers and the administrators of Kern as to why, even though they think they're not racist, the statistics show that Black and Latino people are being pushed out in disproportionate numbers. So the people you just heard from are going to be working with training and the like so that your kids are not pushed out. I'm sure there are some bad people in Kern, but most of the people we think are people of goodwill and can work to figure out how not to be pushing out our kids. So what we might want to do is now people should tell their stories, and maybe if I can ask Linda Reed to be the first person